They say good things come to those who wait. Well, guess I'm gonna be at least an hour late. You've been so good to me, allow me to demonstrate. Hey, real loving, you don't have to wait. Now come closer, yeah. You pick me up, keep me up when I'm feeling under. When I'm feeling undone. Oh, secret, oh, secret, oh, secret. You're the one I've been keeping. You are the one, yeah.
Good morning, welcome to Doek and Ty episode
38 or 39, somewhere there. Road to 40.
My name is Bonang and this is my Bugs Bunny. What's your name?
My name is Daddy.
This is Bokamuso, my handsome husband.
AKA Ty.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you called yourself that. Welcome to this week's episode of Doek and Ty, Grey Wall Conversations. So, firstly, we'd like to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel on YouTube. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's followed and liked the page on Facebook. Thank you once again. We are so grateful to have you here on this journey of exploration.
Yes, self-discovery.
Yes. So welcome to our 3-part segment on everything you need to know before tying the knot.
And more importantly, it's everything that we wish we'd known before getting married.
Before we got married. So on this week's episode, we will be joined by the beautiful Kholeba from Lokwalo Attorneys, who is going to unpack the marriage regime, i.e. in community of property versus out of community of property. So, yes, let's can I say let's get woke?
No. That's how the conversation went with Kholeba. Good morning, Kholeba. Thank you so much for joining us on Doek and Ty today. And the big thing that you might not know is you are our very first guest on Doek and Ty. The first one, I think this is episode 89 or so, or close to 40. So you're the very first person we've had on the show. And welcome to our home, welcome to our platform. My name is Kali. This is my beautiful wife, Bonang. And welcome.
Wow, thank you very much. So much pressure. Thank you very much, Kelly and Bonang, for hosting me.
So like I was saying before we started recording for the time we start making money off this thing, the time we take off and start making money, you're the very first person we're carrying a check for. So you can bill us already, and then when that time and then you'll get your money. But thank you so much for making time to talk to us today. I'm a little nervous, man. I've never had a guest. Normally it's just us research. I believe you guys will have, the ladies thing going, the chemistry going, and I'll just be here to observe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we'll talk a little today about, we're starting this series of sort of a marriage boot camp. What we wish we had known before we got married. We got married about 3 years ago. She was 22. I think I was 25. Yeah, I was 25. So we are just trying to compile some information that we wish we had known before we got married. And today we thought, what better way to start it than to look at the contractual side of marriage. A lot of us get married for different reasons. We got married because I loved her, wanted to start a family, wanted a partner. But a very few people ever get to pause and reflect on the contractual side of things, what the law says marriage is. And I think a lot of us go into it not necessarily knowing what I do. What exactly am I putting myself in, or what am I implicating myself in terms of the law, right?
Before then, let's just have Oliver introduce herself to the Doek and Ty.
Yes.
The Doek and Ty.
Okay, I think I'm so excited to get the roll bowling. My name is Kholeba Lokwalo. A sole proprietor at Lokwalo Attorneys. I'm a woman running a law firm.
You're killing it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Should I then go on to? I mean, would you want to then pose your first question?
Yeah, I think my first question is, lenyalo ka ha molaong ke eng? No, Anka Baka, so I don't know if that makes sense, but what exactly does marriage imply to the two people who are getting married in a legal sense?
Okay, so marriage is a contract, right? It's sort of a societal contract, so to say. When two people get married, they agree to, oftentimes than not, exclude third parties, right? It's an agreement or a contract between you and your spouse, or you and your soon-to-be spouse, because at the time it would not be a spouse yet, right? So it would be a contract between the two of you on how you're going to then handle this formal relationship, which is now recognized by the law.
That's a lot. It's a lot to unpack.
Getting the law involved.
Yeah, getting the law involved.
Yes.
Okay. And then I think that leads me to, I think the main question or the main point of debate around that is in and out of community. I think when I in out. I remember at a certain point, the lady said in, the men said out at the same time, and it got very awkward. I know, it was very awkward. And I was like, okay, what happened? There's some sort of information or disconnect or information that has not been relayed to the two people. What about Tom? They didn't talk about it or they didn't quite understand it. So what exactly is that in and out of community property?
Okay, I like that when you first started, you said for some of this information you would have liked to have known before, and I think it's nice what you're doing. That some people are then going to get to know this information before they actually get into the marriage, right? So in community or community of property, the Ako property regime. The property regime in Botswana is governed by what we call the Married Persons Properties Act, right? And so this act provides the default position is that the marriage in Botswana under common law is out of community of property. And so when the parties then agree that they don't want to adopt the default position, they sign an instrument which is called Form B, and that excluding signing for in community of property, right? You remember I'm saying the default position is out of community of property, and if you and your partner now want the in community of property, you then have to sign an instrument called Form B for you to be in community of property, right? So there are two regimes: out of community of property and in community of property. Out of community of property being the default one. So if, for example, you and your partner, you say, we want to get married, and when you get there, you don't say anything about wanting to sign anything, your marriage is going to automatically be out of community of property. Yes. So what does it mean then? Out of community of property or in community of property. So out of community of property, if you and a partner choose that you're going to get married out of community of property, it means that you will not share the profits, the loss, and liabilities. So whatever you acquire during your marriage, each party acquires for their own, right? Kali over there will be getting a car in his name, a movable property, a house, for example, in your name. That will be yours. Everything that is registered or bought under your name is yours. That is out of community of property. And Bonai, if you buy the same registered under your own name, that becomes yours. And so if, for example, Kali then defaults with his bank loan or mortgage, and then they want to repossess the house, they're going to repossess his house, and it does not affect your house, Bona. That is out of communal property. So the liabilities, he takes care of his own liabilities, his own profit he enjoys, his own loss he endures in that regard. Yes. So that is out of communal property.
Yes.
Now the opposite applies for in communal property. In communal property, you share the profit, the loss, and the liabilities. So in communal property, for example, if you guys have a house and then the bank repossesses the house, God forbid, the bank then repossesses the house, and one man has a house in, for example, your home village, and this house is owing a balance.
Yeah.
The bank can still go and get Bonan's house that is registered in Bonan's name in the village, so that they can then, acquire what is owed to them. Yes.
That's a lot of information.
Yes. That's out. That's in.
But quite interesting. In without accrual, out with accrual. I don't know if I'm getting those terms right. Is there another level to in and out of community?
Well, that's it's mostly South African law. That's what you're saying is South African law. Here, the Marriage Persons Property Act just provides for the in and out. However, you can have what you call a prenuptial agreement, right? And say what I own now is what I own now is mine. What you own now is yours. But going forward, we are in communal property, but we exclude certain properties from forming part of in communal property, right? Yes, and then there is well, it's still, it goes before the court, and I've litigated one of them where the parties are out of communal property, but they're saying that we have accrued the property, this property together, even though we are out of communal property, but there are some properties that we are accrued together. That's a legal concept, different legal concept altogether that requires a lot of time to explain. But you can show the court that even though we are out of communal property, there is property that we are acquired together for the common good and for the business, for our business, so to speak, for our financial increment, so to speak. So it must be divided as if we were in communal property. But remember, it's still out of communal property. And then the parties accrue some property together. Yes. But as I say, it's a tricky legal concept, which we from time to time litigate before the court. Because as I say, the law in Botswana provides strictly for in communal property or out of communal property. But if you are able to show that there was a common understanding in accruing certain properties together, then that the court then must then divide this property equally between us, even though we were married out of communal property. But some judges don't agree with it, some judges agree with it. So it's called universal partnership. But yes, as I say, perhaps maybe as you guys grow, we will include that one because it's lengthy and you need to break it down in order to understand. Otherwise, I'm going to end up confusing people. And that's not my intention.
It's a lot.
I see why law takes 5 years, and you leave it. Or even say, depending on when God wants you to graduate.
Yes.
And then apart from that, as you practice, the more years of experience you acquire, the more expensive you become.
True.
Yes. Yes, because as a concept, sometimes you had a concept, but then when you put faces to it, facts to it, real life to it, then it's totally something different. Just different ball game. Yeah.
And I've heard of instances where, let's say we get married in community of property, and then things happen like COVID's happening right now, and then we want to come out of that regime. We want to move from Form B and we want to go out of community of property. So in such an instance, like what happens? Do we before the courts, or we want to do this and it's just a simple process?
Is it equal to a divorce or is it something different? You have to then get a divorce and then
get a divorce.
Okay. At first, the law in Botswana was rigid, right? It was either you are in community of property or you are out of community of property, nothing in between, until death, literally. So now the law was changed, was amended to include a scenario where, as you rightly put it, where the parties now feel like we no longer want to be out of community of property because we have accrued so much, and also to prevent such litigation for universal partnership, as an example. Now, me and my wife want to now move into in community of property. So the law allows you to do that. So what happens is usually there are steps that the law then provides. For example, you need to advertise first. You need to advertise to say, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, we were out of community of property. Now we want to go into in community of property, so that it's a notice to your creditors, those that you owe, those that owe you, so that they know and take notice that now your property regime is changing. You remember, as I said at first, that there are liabilities, profit and loss involved in this property regimes, and how you treat them is different, right? So that's why, hence the notice. When you want to change, you have to notify people so that they know how they can then relate with your estate going forward, right? Yes. So you notify your creditors and debtors to say you are changing from out of community, or vice versa. Really, you have to still put up a notice in one circulating newspaper that is circulating in Botswana. And then after that, I think it goes on for a month. I'm not sure. I didn't go into that, but even though I had anticipated that you would ask. But yes, there's a period that it has to circulate in that particular chosen newspaper. And one of it must be in the Gazette, government gazette or newspaper, daily news, or a private newspaper. But if you put it in a private newspaper, know that you have to then put it also in the government gazette, because government gazette is easily accessible and it's for government.
Yeah.
Yes. And then after that, you then prepare documents that change your regime from either out or to in, and then you have to file it with deed registry. Yes. So it's going to be, for example, if you've noticed your Form B, if you guys are married in community of property, your Form B is registered with deed. Yes. So also the document that you're going to get after then changing your property regime is going to then be registered with deed, so that then so you don't have to go through any divorce, you don't have to go through any separation. It's just that. So it's a fairly easy process to do. Yes.
But sort of the more you speak, the more questions I'm just getting. Yo,
shoot away.
I'm starting to wonder if in our curriculum we should have maybe like a marriage, or how our curriculum lacks in financial literacy and certain institutions that we get into at a later stage in life. saying what they really impactful, but we never really get that information unless you go out and you're seeking for it. So a question came to mind when we were talking. Let's say we're married out of mutual property, right? And then we don't have kids. And then it so happens that I die. What happens to everything that I own? Does it go to, well, I guess my extended family, or does it then go to Giovanna?
We're
not talking about bills here, right? Basing solely on out of community and in community, or what happens there?
Or if you die and God forbid you are married out of community of property, and you don't have a will, so that means you've died interstate. Yes, you're interstate without a will. Yes. That means that then your property is going to devolve according to the law of intestacy. So what then happens is that your wife is going to be as if you were, I don't want to say married in community of property, but she has a share in your estate, your 50% share, the default 50% share in your estate. Yes. So if you die, for example, and you have a will and you exclude her, that will is going to be valued because you'd been devolving your own estate. You see what I mean? So, but if you die interstate, and interstate says that if you die without a will, then and you were married, your wife is going to get a half share together with the child share, what is called a child share. And if it's determined that maybe, for example, you were taking care of your mother or whoever, then some share is going to go to that if you don't have children.
I have a feeling we're going to get you back here talking about wills. Yeah, but it's a separate conversation altogether.
Yes.
But it's like a whole different animal.
It's a whole different animal, and the reason why sometimes you don't want to, when you talk about such issues, you don't want to, because it might be misleading, because it's a whole subject that you need to unpack from the beginning until the end. You see what I mean?
I am.
Yes.
Thank you.
And as a law firm, your law firm, have you considered maybe having maybe classes where you, I wouldn't want to call it classes, but sort of a premarital
package.
Yeah, where you inform people of like when you get married, this and this and this and this, so that people are getting why eat. Because I can imagine an instance where you get married and the other person knows what they're in debt, but they keep it from you, and then like in community. When I say it, and you're like, okay, cool, in community, and then things go south. You find that you've married into like a mountain of debt. Then I think it's important to have such. So I'm wondering, as a law firm, maybe you could consider, having these sort of things. Honestly speaking, read, because when I hear like in because the greatest fear, honestly, is that when you say out, people feel like you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. There's a perception kind of stigma associated with being married out of community of property.
One of the people who perpetuate that stigma. My own personal views and thoughts is out of community is not really marriage until I'm educated otherwise. But I think I'm one of those people who think that. So maybe let's piggyback on what she was saying. Is there any reason, or what are some of the common reasons why people put forward in order to be married out of community of property?
To marry out of community of property. Okay. Just before I forget, Bonang had said, as a law firm, would we consider perhaps maybe legal education on some of these things? Well, I think for the longest time we thought that, the Malawi, the classes that people attend, that they they take care of that aspect. But I understand where you're coming from, and I think maybe something that could be arranged, for people to sort of like just get an overview feel of what the law says in terms of this property regime, because they can sometimes be complex for other people, right? Yes. And then to the question, why do people sometimes choose to? I wouldn't really know that, because I think it's a societal, sociological question more than a legal one. But what I have seen throughout with the experience that I've had, and this one is just my personal experience, I think people get married because sometimes they want to, because they're involved in risky business transactions. You know what I mean? One day you are up, one day you are down, and so they don't want to affect their what possessions, what they have acquired, and that's why they put it in their wife's names, and then they remain with this, so that when the debtors and creditors are coming to knock on the door, then they can find only this particular one to attach. You see what I mean? And then even if they take your house in Odi, you know that you have a house in your wife's name in Gaborone. You know what I mean?
Or you guys really need to trust each other if you're to go that route.
Yes.
There's good
Yes. And then they say, but this property is mine. We're married out of mutual property.
Rightfully so. Sheesh, man. So, a bit of a personal question to you. You can choose not to answer it. I know you're married. Are you married in and out of mutual property?
You're in and out.
Are you married in or out of property of mutual property? And did you, being a lawyer, play any role in you deciding? Because, like we're saying, a lot of people don't know what's in, out, but you're in a position of, you have this vast knowledge. Did it somehow, I don't want to say cloud your judgment, or was your judgment made clearer by having such knowledge?
Okay. Before I'm a lawyer, like I'm human and I'm a woman. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. And we fall in love. We trip in love. Okay. On a serious note, well, I think for me, the consideration that I made when we were getting married, we didn't really have anything. We met at UBO also, and we were fresh from university, and so we didn't have anything, and so we didn't see anything wrong. We sat down with my husband, and said, "Look, we don't own anything. There's no risk to our estate, so to speak." And we're not doing any risky business. Let's just acquire everything together. Let's start from zero together. And indeed, we started from zero together. That was our only consideration. We don't have anything. We're not in anything. We're not doing anything risky. And for now, we trust each other. For now.
There's the lawyer coming out. For now.
Terms and conditions apply.
Thank you for sharing that.
I get it.
Yeah.
You see, also the reason why I people that earlier question is because like marriage is tops. Like you come there, they're like, yes, we're so happy you guys are getting married. And oftentimes that happiness, like it's like you're in a bubble, bubbling. So I think that's why I can talk about the classes from a lawyer, from a perspective like they're not pushing you to get married. They have nothing to gain from you getting married. That's why I get maybe the consideration of classes, because that lawyers are quite neutral. Like your gain is not really their gain. They're just gonna tell you the information that they know and how everything works. Whereas classes, if we attend classes, they want us to stay together. They want us to be a family. It's different. So that's why they give words that.
No, I hear you. I think also, I mean, that could be it's a good idea. You see what I mean? And perhaps for people like you, might not already have something started already. You know what I mean? You could come up with such an initiative, and in one of your classes, then you say, let's bring a lawyer. Let us sit down, round table. Let us sit down. Let us discuss some of this and unpack some of the things that we are getting ourselves into, and we have little to no knowledge about what we are getting ourselves into. I think for me now, I totally agree with you. I think that's a good idea, because also I think people attached, as you had pointed out earlier, that there's stigma attached to out of community property. But once you amass a lot of property and you don't want it to go down the drain all at once, it would be a good idea to get married out of community of property, because you know that the liabilities are not going to attach to your partner's property or the property that you had acquired, but now in your partner's names. You see what I mean? So it doesn't, for all that you've worked for, your hard, what is the name? What is the word? All your hard work doesn't go down the drain once. Well, that's the greatest how you can protect yourself greatest and your partner greatest. You know what I mean? To say we have a lot. For example, people would be having multi-races and this and that, businesses, trucks and everything. And if, for example, you just have you make one bad business decision, all is going to go down the drain, all because you were married in community of property. You see what I mean? Exactly. And also, there's one thing also that people should know. For example, if you are married in community of property right now, and Carly over there decides to step out of the marriage and have, God forbid, and have a child outside the marriage, the maintenance should come from your estate. If you are married in community of property, that means you are also liable, Bonan. You see what I mean? Yes, if Carly doesn't work, you pay the maintenance. You see what I mean? Hey. Yes, as I said, it's profit, loss, and liabilities. Hey. You share them.
I think this is like the best guest we would have ever possibly started with on the channel. On the platform. You are a lawyer now. If I get stopped by the police, no more speeding tickets for me. Now the one I can let me go on purpose. Thank you so much.
No questions at all.
You covered it pretty well, I think, in basic, understandable English. We didn't use any big terms. That's what we try to do here, just to dumb down. Well, not necessarily dumb down, but break it down to a level in which a 10-year-old or 15-year-old can watch this and really understand or pick up something from it. So thank you so much for your time. We're going to have you back here. So those checks, just keep writing. Or okay, session 1, session 2. The time to make money.
You do not know how lawyers do.
Absolutely. And if there are any questions, because people might want clarification, and in the comment section, I know that there is comment section in your YouTube. You post. I mean, if there is a question and you'd want me to answer it, you can just let me know. I'll tell you the response, then you can post the response.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then, lastly, in closing, just can you tell us about Lopalo, is it attorneys or notaries and conveyances? I'm not sure. But just can you tell us, what do you guys do? Like, I know that there's someone who's watching the channel and maybe they're interested in coming by. Or they've been looking for someone to discuss such issues with. What do you guys do? Where are you based?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Bana. Lopalo Attorneys is based in phase 2, just near CBD, plot 19234. And we deal mostly with civil litigation, debt collection, your divorce, your maintenance, your custody, contract drafting and advice. We litigate or in all courts, really. The magistrate, the High Court, and the Court of Appeal. We don't do much of criminal. We do there and there, but not a lot. Yeah, we do a lot of civil and commercial litigation. And the areas that I had mentioned. And also we are notaries and conveyancers. If you want to sell your property or if you want to buy your property, we can help, advise, and yes.
I think that wraps it up nicely. Happy Friday and have yourself a lovely weekend. Fingers crossed that we'll have you back here talking about the wheelie and swap, my favorite issues.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I mean, you invite me anytime you want. Invite me. I'll be ready to assist. I'm a legal educator myself, so that's why when this opportunity presented itself, and I thought, wow, okay, fine, whatever, let me do this. Why not?
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much for having me.
Happy Friday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
They say good things come to those who wait.